The Smart School Class 3 Science Video Lesson 1. We shall start from Chapter 1, which is Earth as a Living Planet. The topic of study is the factors required to sustain life on Earth. We will study pages 1 and 2. You will require Smart Science 3, your notebook and pencils before the start of this lesson. Are you ready? By the end of this lesson, you should be able to identify 5 factors that support life on Earth. Determine what kind of temperature conditions do living organisms need to survive. And describe how light, water, air and soil play their part in sustaining the life on Earth. Factors required to sustain life on Earth are sunlight, water, air, temperature, and soil. These are the basic needs of a living organism. Living things cannot survive if any of these things is not available. Life will not be possible if these factors are not available. Can you rename these factors with me? These factors are: number 1, temperature. What is the second one? It is light. The third one is water. The fourth one is air. And the fifth one is soil. How are you feeling today? Are you feeling hot or are you feeling cold? Temperature of the surroundings makes you feel cold or hot. All living things need to live in a particular temperature. If the temperature is too cold, as the case here, we cannot survive. And if it is too hot, again, it will be difficult for us to live on. Living things cannot survive if the temperature is too high or it is too low. So the temperature on Earth is just right for the life to happen. Here you see the distance of the Sun and the Earth is just right. If it had been to the left, the temperature conditions would be too hot for the life to go on. And if it would have been on the right, the temperature would have been too cold for the life to survive. The distance of Earth from the Sun is the most appropriate to sustain life on Earth. Another factor important for life is light. During daytime there is light. Where does this light come from? You can see this is the picture of a day. The light that you see is coming from the sun. The sunlight comes from the sun. Sun is the main source of light and heat on the earth. So where does this light come from? The light that we see on the earth comes from the sun. What would happen if there is no sun? Our earth will look like this rather than this. You see, this is a living planet with greenery and water. None of this would be there if there is no sun. If there is no sun, there would be no light and no heat. Plants would not be able to grow and animals would not be able to get food. Eventually, all the living things would die. Water is another important factor of life. Why do living things need water? Animals cannot survive without drinking water, and plants, they need water to make their food. So without water, plants and animals cannot survive. Water in human body. Do you know how much of our body is made of water? About 70% of our body is made of water. That is how important water is for us. Without water, we will not be able to live for more than 3 days. All living things need air. Let's see how long you can hold your breath. Maybe for 5 seconds or 10 seconds. Well, maybe for 30 seconds. Eventually, you have to let the air in. So you had to breathe in because all living things need air. Why do plants need air? Do plants also breathe in and breathe out like us? Plants need air to make their food. Plants use sunlight and water along with air to make their own food. Soil. You saw in the previous picture the plant was standing. Where does that plant get its support to stand on? That support is provided by the soil. Soil provides support to plants. They take nutrients from the soil as well as the support. So the plant, when it is very small, start getting its roots out. As the roots go into the soil, the plant keeps growing. Can you name some animals that live in the soil? Ants and rabbits are some of the animals that live in the soil. That is how they make their homes in the soil and they live underground. So soil not only supports the plants, it also provides home to many of the animals. So now we will assess what we have learned so far. The first question is, which of the following groups of living things can make their own food? Is it the plants or is it the animals? The correct answer is plants are the living things that make their own food. Another question is, which of the following places are most suitable for living things? Is it the extremely cold places like this one, or places with moderate temperature like this one, or extremely hot places like the picture shown here? The correct answer is places with moderate temperature are the most suitable for living things. Another question is, which of the following is the biggest source of energy for us? Is it the sun or is it the moon? The correct answer is sun is the biggest source of energy, that is heat and light, for all the living things on the earth. All living things need a home. What is being shown in this picture? You can see a polar bear in a desert. What is wrong with this picture? The polar bear cannot live in a desert. A polar bear lives in cold places and it is their habitat. Can you guess the meaning of the word habitat? The word habitat means the environment in which plants and animals live. Just as we saw in the case of a polar bear, its habitat are extremely cold places. These are 4 different types of habitats. This is the one that we have just seen. For the polar bear, this is the main grasslands, this is a mountainous area, and this is a desert. All these different types of habitats have different types of living organisms. Can you name some plants and animals that share your habitat? Think of some plants and animals that live in the area around you. Are these some of those animals? Goat, cow, wheat crop, grapes, dog, and tomatoes. How many of these living organisms, plants and animals, live in the area nearby you? So these are the different types of habitat. First is polar region that we have gone through a bit. The second one is forests. The third one is deserts. Number 4 is mountains. And number 5 is rivers and seas. All these different places have different types of living things in them. These living things cannot survive if you take them to other places. For examples, camels will not survive in mountains, and fish will not survive in deserts. So, polar region is the habitat that we are going to study in detail. Can you name some animals living in the polar region? One of them is of course the polar bear that we have just seen. These are some other animals that live in the polar region. One of them is leopard seal. The other one is penguin. You may have seen penguin in different cartoons. Arctic wolf and polar bear, Arctic fox and walrus. Do you know how does the land look like in the polar regions? The land in the polar regions is always covered in snow. It doesn't matter what time of the year it is, either it is January or it is June or it is December, these areas are always covered in snow, just as you can see in this picture. So you can see a polar bear sleeping peacefully in such cold climate. You can see a thick coat of fur and thick skin on this polar bear. Can you think of the reason why do polar animals have thick skin and thick fur? The reason is these animals have thick fur to survive in extremely cold weather. Just as you wear sweaters and jackets to avoid cold, these animals have been given thick fur by nature to survive in extremely cold areas. How are polar animals able to walk on ice without slipping? When you attempt to walk on ice, you may slip. Even on a wet surface, we can slip. How do polar animals survive without slipping? Their feet have special structures, and those structures help them to walk on ice. Can you name 5 plants and animals that share your habitat? Think of some plants and some animals that are present in the area where you live. You need to put their names in order. You may find some of the following plants and animals present in your area. rose plant, orange tree, mango tree, wheat crop, and sugarcane. And for animals, you may find cat, dog, cow, horse, and donkey. These are some of the most common plants and animals that are present in the area where us human beings live. Which of the following animals can you find in a jungle? Do you find a polar bear in a jungle? Or do you have a chance of seeing a deer in a jungle? The correct answer is you may find a deer in a jungle because polar bear is only found in very cold regions where there are no trees and obviously no forests. Another question coming your way is which of the following habitats are most suitable for penguins? We have just seen penguins. Can you tell which area would they prefer to live in? The polar regions or the grasslands or the extremely hot deserts? The correct answer is that penguins like to live in the polar regions. Forests. What is a forest? It is a large area with a large number of plants and animals. Can you tell what type of animals are present in the forests? The animals that are present in the forest are wild animals. They eat animals, grass and leaves of plants to survive. Can you name some wild animals? Some of the wild animals are zebras, deer, lion, and wolf. In forest, we see evergreen trees. What are evergreen trees? These are the trees that do not shed their leaves seasonally. They remain green throughout the year. Can you think of some examples of evergreen trees? Pine trees and conifers, as shown in this picture, are examples of evergreen trees. Our next habitat is deserts. What types of areas are deserts? Deserts are very dry areas of land. They do not get much rain. That is why you do not see a lot of plants and animals in the deserts. What type of temperature is there in the deserts? Deserts have extremely hot and cold temperatures. During the day, they are very hot, and at night, they are very cold. Can you name some desert animals? Camel is a famous desert animal. Some of the other desert animals are rat, scorpion, and snake. Cactus is a desert plant. Not many plants can grow in the deserts, but the one that is frequently found in deserts is cactus. You can see its picture over here. So where does the cactus grow? Yes, it grows in the deserts, and especially where the soil is dry. Since there is almost no water available in the desert, how does it survive in a dry atmosphere? Cactus has an ability to store water. It has a thick stem, as you can see over here, and this stem stores water for future use. That is how cactus can live for a long time without water. Can you name 3 different types of deserts? They are sandy desert, rocky deserts, and deserts with mountains. We shall now do a quick quiz on what we have learned in this lesson. You are to match these columns. The correct answers are: desert plant is cactus. Wild animal out of these options is lion. Animal found in desert is camel. And pine tree is an evergreen plant. The next habitat that we are going to study is mountains. What are mountains? Mountains are landforms that rise high above the surroundings. As you can see, this mountain has risen high as compared to the ground here. Can you name some trees that grow in the mountains? Pine trees, juniper, and deodar are examples of such trees. These are the sort of trees that grow in the mountains. Can you name some mountain animals? Some of the mountain animals are mountain goat, mountain squirrels, and bighorn sheep. Rivers and sea is also a habitat where many animals and plants live. But the question is, how do those animals breathe? Animals living in water can breathe using their lungs or their gills. Where do sharks live? Sharks live in the sea. Can you name some animals found in rivers? See, there are fish that live in the rivers, and there are turtles as well as crocodiles that are present in the rivers. Can you name some plants that grow in water habitats? These are coconut trees, seaweed, and water lily. All of these plants grow in water habitats and hence they are called as aquatic plants. A quick quiz based on what we have learned so far. Can you tell which of the following is the habitat of sharks? Is it the sea or is it the desert? The correct answer is the sea is the habitat of sharks. You have to choose the right words from the table that is shown here to fill in the blanks. The correct answers are: plants make their own food using sunlight, air, and water. If surroundings are too hot or too cold, living things will die. Sun is the main source of heat and light. Living things need air to breathe. A large area with a large number of plants and trees is called a forest.